Hi, I'm Arthur. And when it comes to Space Marines, you can say they are a bit of an oversaturated medium. Especially with every edition. Every second Versus box that comes out is usually Space Marines versus something. Eldar, Chaos, Chaos Marines, so on and so forth. There are different boxes from time to time, but it's usually Marines across the board. This is a good thing, because marketing-wise, say you have a dude with friends. This dude collects Space Marines, but a Space Marine vs. Tyranid box comes out. So, what do? You get your friend to go half-seas with you on a discounted set of miniatures, and maybe some new miniatures too. And boom, you just converted a new person into bank debt. For years, new Space Marine model kits would come out, and this was the standard. These little dudes with their poses, and honestly, I love them. But as someone whom has at least vaguely a good idea of proportions and has seen a human being before in my life, I'm going to say, this shit, whack. This shit, whack. This shit, whack. The closest to an update we got was during maybe the Dark Vengeance box in 7th edition, where the Dark Angel Terminators looked pretty nice, and the Chosen for the Chaos Space Marines were pretty cool too. But they still had the issue with their proportions being a little bit weird. In comes 8th edition, swinging its massive cock around like it's got nothing better to do, and it introduces a new breed of Space Marine in the lore. It's pretty simple, I will say. Basically, in concept, the new Space Marines, known simply as Primaris Marines, in lore are slightly better Space Marines with very little combat training. They have 2 new gene seed organs and slightly better armor. The armor itself isn't anything super new. It's just comprised of updated versions of past armors, no more apparent than when you look at the helmet itself, which is a modified Mark IV helmet. They'll have uniform and shiny looking armor. They were created thousands of years ago and have not really seen battle for that long, so they're all pretty inexperienced when it comes to fighting. But they showed up at the 11th fucking hour before Chaos was probably going to get its final dub to help and save the Imperium with Bobby G backing them up. They ride in with their old brothers whom have been fighting for longer to learn their ways. Each chapter being allowed new reinforcements from this Primaris stock to do with what they choose. Their gene stock was actually modified by Belisarius Call. He's a giant fucking squid robot monster spider that does a bunch of tech heresy. And this tech heresy was extended to him modifying the genetic code of each of the gene seeds to remove their major flaws. So, less stoicism in the Imperial Fists, less uncontrollable berserker rages in the Space Wolves. The flaws, despite his attempts at removing them, still manifest to some degree, so it doesn't really rob the Primaris Marines of what makes them interesting. It just sometimes mutes the flavor and the color of it for a short period of time. Eventually, they do fall prey to their issues. Even some Firstborn Marines can cross over and become Primaris Marines by undergoing a risky surgery, which gives them the benefits of the Primaris organs, armor, and continued support from the Imperium, while also having the experience to make use of their new abilities. The models are finally fucking true scale. So what true scale essentially means is, before you could put a Space Marine next to a Guardsman, they would kind of be close in height, which in lore is... no, that's not a thing. Now, the Primaris Marine models do meet the height discrepancy, and to be fair, all the Primaris models look pretty good. Their modern sculpts and modern GW plastic work is actually top-notch. It's probably one of the best miniature lines that you're going to see, regardless of what game you're playing from them. They do have a very homogeneous look to them, for the most part, but for me, playing Black Templars, I think the Primaris Sword Brethren and the Crusaders look good. They do break that mold of being too samey across their ranks, but if you're playing a more basic squad of like intercessors for, say, Ultramarines, yeah, the intercessors all can look pretty similar. Okay, so I have definitely pissed off a few people with the last paragraphs, because if you couldn't tell, this video isn't me talking about why people love the Primaris Marines. Nah, dude. If 40k fans are anything, they are violently hateful about any change or announcement GW makes. Look at this. What the fuck is this? To get down to brass tacks, I don't really care. I like the Primaris models. My entire Black Templar army is Primaris, which is cool. I think aesthetically it looks nice. But for some people, when the Primaris models came out, they really thought GW fumbled the bag a bit. And to be fair, I'd have to agree with them to a degree, because all Primaris miniatures that were released at the time were objectively better than the traditional Firstborn counterparts that were before them, which made old-time fans think that GW was basically trying to make the classic Marines obsolete, which is bullshit, I will say. GW did bounce back after a while and make all the Marines have the same kinds of benefits, 2 wounds, and the regular Marines were a bit cheaper to run, but the scars were still there. You can release a miniature that is bad, you can release a miniature that is mediocre, you can release a miniature that is great, but what bothers people more than anything is releasing a miniature that is better than a miniature you already have, full stop. It makes people who bought the original miniature feel bad for, having it, and it made the sales for that miniature kit tank as you kind of force the new Primaris version down people's throats, which I completely understand why some people were pissed off at that. That is kind of a bullshit marketing tactic to sell models to new customers. They thought it flew in the face of every single thing GW held sacred back in the day. They wanted to hang the people of GW from a tree for this, complaining that the super better big boy Marines were just GW trying to remove the Grimdark from Warhammer, which is not fucking true. Though I do have the benefit of hindsight after a couple years, keeping me away from 8th edition. It came off like 40k fans were nervous that GW was basically trying to completely overhaul the setting to sell a completely different model range that no one really wanted or saw coming. Which, considering only a few years ago, at the point of 8th edition, GW nuked the shit out of Warhammer Fantasy so hard that the corpse still isn't even cold today, I can understand. But even today, just a few weeks ago, I had a friend have an actual meltdown screaming style fit about how Black Templars should have killed all the Primaris Marines sent to them, which, okay, cool. I guess in your obscenely rigid idea of how the universe works, that does make sense, but follow me on this. People were upset about the change. They were upset about GW trying to sell you on the new Coke while you still liked the old Coke. But change is important. Stagnation breeds complacency, complacency breeds boredom, and boredom breeds a lack of attention and sales for the company. And as much as we get annoyed by the pricing and the over-monetization of the content and miniatures involved, if GW didn't exist, we wouldn't have any of this. We wouldn't have the miniatures, we wouldn't have the lore, we wouldn't have the game that kind of brings this whole community together. So love them, hate them, you do have to realize it was a decision they needed to make in order to progress the setting so that it didn't just stay grinding in place all the time. I have very mixed opinions on the whole situation as a whole. I believe change is good. It brings in new people, and new people means more people to play with. But I can understand how people can be upset about the sudden fact their little old men are now an anachronism in their own setting. I don't think they are, as much as I didn't like the devastation of Baal. Any scene with Gabriel Seth in that book was pretty fun. And when he thought the Primaris Marines were, and I quote, kind of cringe, I understood him more in that moment than anyone else I've ever met in my entire life. But I like that. Narratively, it makes sense for people in lore to feel that way. It creates good fiction due to the friction between two parties, the new and up-and-coming stars showing up, and the old guard still holding on and still being useful, which is kind of neat. One of my favorite theories is, what if a Primaris Marine was like half the lifespan of a regular Firstborn Marine? The twice as bright, half as long type beat. I doubt it's going to be that, because I feel like they may just discontinue Firstborn Marines in 40k as a normal kit, and just keep making new ones for the Horus Heresy and allow you to sub them in whenever you feel like it. But it is what it is. So what do you think? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about the Primaris Marine discourse, and where it could go. I think it's a good topic to discuss, Since I'm back in full swing now, I'm gonna totally be reading as many comments as possible as we go through. And also remember to like and subscribe. I tend to make content pretty frequently if you haven't noticed. And just one moment before I do my ending bit, I want to thank all of my channel members for helping me not worry about having to eat grass for the next month. And if you want to see all my content the second that it's uploaded rather than waiting for the scheduled release dates, become a channel member. It's relatively cheap and, it definitely helps me in the production of these videos and helps me get access to resources I wouldn't have before. Until next time, I just want to say, can we please just get new scout models, please? I don't care if they're Primaris, it's just, the old scout models look like dog shit. Come on, man. You already have a print file that looks like this in the fucking Crusader Neophytes. Look at this, that looks cool. Look at this. Dude was told to bring his stealthiest gun, so he brought the fucking Unalivinator 5000. I mean, if they're all dead, then I guess they can't fucking